We're live streamed.
Just about. Looking along here, setting up, it's setting up. Okay, so now. Okay, all set.
Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Do a roll call of the committee. It's Kelly Bloom, David Westmoreland, myself, and the staff is Brian Bedoli, Kate O'Leary, Eugenia Lupinski, and I guess everyone's here. With that,
Yep.
Do we have anyone online that wants to participate or say anything? Seeing no one, I'll go to administration, approval of the minutes. The first item is to approve the minutes of September 21st, 2021 special meeting. Do I have a motion to do that? Kelly made that motion. Second, David seconds. Do we see any changes? Deletions, additions? Okay. Since we've had the motion and it's been seconded, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Item B is the approve the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency Statement of Revenues and Expenditures for the Operating Fund 100 and for year to date of August 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those? Well, let's hear them. Eugenia.
Yes. Okay, for the period ending August 31st, the operating fund 100 had actual revenues of $217,000 versus budgeted revenues of $237,000, which resulted in an unfavorable variance of $20,000. This is mainly due to lower CDBG grant revenue, which will be recouped over the remainder of the year. And total expenditures of $221,000 versus a budget of $239,000 resulted in a favorable variance of $18,000. This is due to favorable variances in personnel costs of $11,000 and in administrative expenses of $7,000. The net actual operating deficit of $5,000 versus the budgeted operating deficit of $3,000 resulted in an unfavorable variance of $2,000. That's it.
Good. Okay. We need a motion to approve those financial report. David Westmoreland, second. I'll second it. Okay, Kelly seconded. Any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. We'll move on to business. The South Norwalk train station area study. We will approve the VHB contract amendment for services related to COVID recovery planning. Do I have a motion? See, okay, we're having a discussion. What happened there? Brian, you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Now
me?
we can hear you.
Can you see my screen? Are you seeing the VHB proposal?
No.
It was up and it went away.
All right, let me try that again. Let's see here. How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. My apologies for not including this in the packet. We just actually received the final today. We're going back and forth with transportation, mobility, and parking and office economic development at the city to finalize this scope. But basically what it is it's an additional task item that's come up through our discussions, similar to ones we've had in the past regarding the South Norwalk TOD study and also the Webster Lot project that we've been looking at. Specifically around two items, one being to take a closer look at the interoperability of parking at Webster Lot and the South Norwalk train station, and really seeing how COVID has impacted demand. So what we'll be doing is actually working with VHB to look at pre-pandemic levels, and then also comparing those to sort of base level assumptions and what we're thinking in the market to determine what's the optimal sort of parking arrangement, and how they interplay between the Webster Lot and South Norwalk TOD, given the fact that one has often served as overflow for the other. So the city and our office wanted to take a closer look at that, and we have some remaining CDBG CV coronavirus response resources that would work for this, that will pay for this project. And to that end, we're looking to take the other items as a second task of this, to actually kind of coalesce the past sort of added scope items that you've all approved, both in terms of the retail analysis, the sort of equity piece, and then the Webster Lot financial analysis into what we're calling a COVID-19 recovery plan. I'm really looking at how the market has changed as a result of COVID and what we could sort of reasonably expect in the future, so we can integrate that not only in our South Norwalk TOD study, but hopefully pursue new resources as it comes available under this header that we have this plan in place. So what I'm asking for is effectively to approve me to authorize the contract not to exceed $25,000, which we finally just got that number just about an hour ago.
Any questions? Comments, observations? I'll make one. I just happened to be driving around today and I noticed the Rowayton parking lot is back to full capacity. Coincidentally, I went through the Darien train station parking lot, and that's back to full capacity as well. So it looks like things are returning to normal. So that's my only observation. We have this in front of us. I need a motion to approve it. Kelly,
So moved.
seconded.
Second.
Seconded. Any further questions, observations? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. So we've approved item A1 under business. Going to B is a historic facade improvement program. The first item, the only item, is to authorize the executive director to execute contracts consistent with the historic facade improvement grant guidelines and the amount not to exceed total funding available. Turn it over to Brian.
Yeah, great. So as contained in your packet, there's a memo sort of detailing the process by which we begun implementing the historic facade improvement program. As you may recall, we have been allocated city resources over the past couple of years to do some of these projects. We've been actively working to put together some guidelines and structure the actual program. We put out a solicitation a few months back. We did actual active flyering. I think we put over 400 flyers out there. We did a lot of sort of direct advertising and distribute them through City Hall to try to get the most reach out of the program as we can. You'll see the project boundary that we did submit that to, included in the memo, as well as the applications that we received back. So in total, we've received, I believe it was 10 applications that we've received. Out of those 10 applications, we actually worked with Todd Bryant to kind of go through them and rank them in terms of what projects could make the most sense or have the most significance, so we could kind of move the program forward as a whole. With the guidelines basically limited the grant to about $50,000 per project. So we received scopes in that regard. What I'm seeking tonight, though, is approval to just implement the overall $365,000 that's available out of City Capital, with the understanding that there's going to be no grant that exceeds $50,000. We still need to go work with the applicants to develop the scope. And one of the things that we're working on, and where I'm sort of the flexibility will be helpful, is in the fact that we're trying to make these resources go as far as possible, and we're pursuing a matching grant opportunity with the applicants. So it'll take a little bit more time to negotiate the scopes. But as long as we have the authorization on our end, we'll be able to have that flexibility to try to make that take it as far as possible, sort of serving as almost additional resources for historic preservation. I should also note I had a great conversation with DECD regarding the historic homes tax rehabilitation credit. And there is an opportunity for us to actually work on behalf of the applicants to obtain those credits and then work it into sort of a revolving loan fund so we could generate more resources for this program. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we're trying to do. So what you'll see in here is the list of projects, the actual addresses, and there's a map referencing where they're located. And also there's some pictures in terms of the actual buildings. And then in terms of what Todd Bryan had recommended was actually advancing 7 of these projects, or 8 total, 2 of which were kind of kicked out because they a lot of work has been performed in the past, sort of eliminated the historical significance. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing none? Kelly, David?
I would just say that I think this is a great program. I'm excited that it's finally getting underway. And that's actually terrific news about the tax credit thing, because that's always been super hard for individuals to deal with, particularly homeowners. So as a result, you only had big developers going after those. So it'd be great if we could get more of that funnel to the Norwalk homeowners. So I think it's terrific.
Yeah, and I think we noticed there's 5 that are actually contributing resources to the national and state register. So we'll work and provide the technical assistance to try to help navigate that process because it is a challenge.
Good. I like the program as well. So while I read it, we need a motion to authorize the executive director to execute these contracts. Do I have a motion? David makes the motion. Second.
Second.
Kelly, all in favor?
Aye.
We go on to the MLK Facade Improvement Program. The motion is to authorize Brian Bedoli, Executive Director, to execute contracts consistent with the MLK Facade Improvement Grant Guidelines, an amount not to exceed total funding available. Brian.
Yeah, so similar to the historic rehab program, we've been working on implementing a program for the MLK corridor as defined by the geography you have in your memo. We actually are actively involved in phase 1 of that, doing 8 rehab projects in the area. We had sort of split this up based on the timing of funds that we had. So what we're doing now is we're trying to advance the next 6 in the batch for a total of $177,000 in projects. The maximum grant funding is going to be limited to $25,000 per unit. But it will be supporting a rehab of 20 residential units. So in a similar manner, we've included the addresses of the projects here today. And I'm requesting authorization to implement the program to the not to exceed number of $177,000 of funding that's available.
Okay. Another nice program.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? None? Do I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We'll move on to the EPA Brownfields Grant for 30 Monroe Street remediation. The motion is to authorize Brian Bedoli. We're authorizing you a lot tonight.
I know, it's dangerous.
We're putting too much money in your hands, basically.
I know.
Executive
However,
Director to execute all documents and contracts required to implement the 2021 EPA Brownfields Cleanup Grant. Brian.
All right, great. So this is exciting news that we received a little while back, a $500,000 grant to help with cleanup around the South Norwalk train station, specifically the 30 Monroe site. This is actually 4 cleanup activities. There's already been a phase 1, a phase 2, and phase 3 remedial action plan developed for the property. So EPA has awarded us. These are very competitive grants. We were very excited to get that. And we'll be matching this with CDBG resources, which is nicely allowed for this particular program, which some of the federal programs don't allow that. So the sort of budget's included in here. And this is basically just authorizing me to sign the agreements and start implementing the projects.
Any questions? Comments? No? Will someone make that motion?
So moved.
Kelly makes the motion, seconded. David?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, that takes care of business. We go to new business. The first item under new business, I'll just like to mention is that I've been advised it's better to not have the chair make the motions. So that's why tonight I've been asking for someone else to make the motions. So we'll be following that in the future. And I've also been advised that we need a loan committee. Brian, would you give everybody more background on this?
Yeah. So, there had been a standing loan committee, but some of the changes on the board, some of the members are no longer, available to participate. So what we need to do is reestablish it. And the reason being is actually just about, 2 hours ago, we got a call from a homeowner who's in an emergency situation for a roof to actually obtain a loan under that program for residential rehab. So we anticipate receiving an application in the coming days here. And we just want to make sure that we have the loan committee established so we could just set up a phone call and enact the emergency procedures to get that approved for this applicant. So I think, based on the guidelines, we'd like to have 3, and I see 3 people here. So I'm wondering if we could have a conversation about setting up the loan committee.
Is that you, Katie, and Eugenia? Are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean, you're giving me all the power tonight. Sure, why not?
What is the process? They fill out an application and it would be submitted to the 3 of us, and we evaluate it.
Yeah, and typically, I mean, we would do it in the form of a meeting, but with emergency situations, we'll set up something. We'll obviously notice the meeting, and have a call just to kind of get things through and make sure everyone's okay with it. We'll review the applicant and make sure they meet the criteria of the program and provide that to you all for consideration.
Okay. If the 3 of us, the loan committee, approve the loan, does it still have to go to the more formal monthly committee meeting?
Not for the emergency protocols, as it were with the other things. Yes, it did, as far as I understand it.
Okay. So we could do an emergency meeting via Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments about this? So you're on another committee now. Any other new business? No, seeing none, I'll go to old business. Any old business we want to discuss? Everybody smiling? No? Okay, old business. So then we'll go into executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Seconded. We're moving into executive session.
So before you do, I'm going to turn off the recording